Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance annual Grantmakers Forum. We're glad to have all of you here with us today. And I want to begin by thanking our sponsors. First, we have Sandia National Laboratories is one of our sponsors, so thank you, Sandia, for sponsoring us. And we also, for this program, have Connected Philanthropy, who does a lot of great grant writing. So they're sponsoring this as well, and so let's thank them. And then I just want to take a second to recognize the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance board members who are here. And I'm hoping I'm not going to miss anybody, but we'll start with my board chair, Marty Sutton. And Michelle. Lisa Henderson. Dillman, Valerie Jonas, anybody else that I'm not seeing yet? Okay, they're probably part of the trickle in as well. You know, board members and reading the emails. I'm just kidding, that's kind of supposed to be a joke. Not my board, but other boards. My board is actually excellent at that. So thank you to my board for the leadership and support. As we do each year, today's panel features a new slate of grant-making organizations. Last year, we were pleased to have Three Valleys Community Foundation join us on the panel, and while they're not on the panel this year, we're happy to continue working closely with them in other ways. So, in fact, before we move into today's panel discussion, I'm pleased to invite Susan Howman from Three Valleys Community Foundation to share briefly about a program that we are partnering on together.
Thank you, Kathy. We are so excited today to announce Three Valleys Community Foundation and Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance, a new next-gen philanthropy cohort program kicking off in the summer and going through the end of 2026. You may recall that at the Martin Luther King breakfast this year, Three Valleys launched a Young Philanthropist Award. What you may not know is that we actually had 49 nominees. A lot. And there was so much talent in the group of those nominees and such a desire to want to learn from all of you and pay it forward. So it seems perfectly fitting to have TVNPA and Three Valleys create that cohort opportunity. It will include training, immersive engagement, and we asked them already to identify the top 3 nonprofits that they wanted to learn from and have a mentor from. And many of your organizations are on the list. So we hope that you will be able to help us as we do this program, pay it forward a little bit in terms of training the next generation of leaders, and be that mentor so we can all help our next generation give, grant, grow, and become great nonprofit leaders. More to come. Thank you.
I'm going to do a quick announcement for our July program, which will be led by our own Chris Carter, Philanthrophobia, the fear of fundraising, and how to overcome the fear of fundraising with a plan. So I hope you will join us in July. In June, we're having a little struggles with this one. It's likely going to be on Zoom, and it'll be for your board members. And you too, but board members. So you want to get your board members enrolled in that. I hear from a lot of you that that's what you want to do. So we're grateful to today's panelists for taking the time to be with us. We know grantmakers have many demands on their time, and we deeply appreciate their willingness to share not only information about their organizations, but about their perspective, guidance, and candor. At about 11:25, we're going to open up the conversation for audience questions using Slido. When you came in, and these are kind of sitting around the room. This is a QR code, and if you haven't done this with us before, you can scan the QR code to ask questions. If you see a question that's already in there that you want to be asked, just hit the little like button, and it will vote it up. So it's quite handy, and then Christine will have those questions when we get to that section, again at 11:25. And then at 11:45, we'll have one closing question for our panelists. So I'm really happy to have our regional foundations, which is Judy Lopez from the California Endowment, Alexandria Cooley from East Bay Community Foundation, and Eduardo Gonzalez from the San Francisco Foundation. And then some of our local organizations, we have Michelle Walker-Wade from Sandia National Laboratories, Kevin Greenlee from Pleasanton North Rotary, and Dennis Gums from the Rotary Foundation of Livermore. And as our moderator, we have Christine Biash-Mahami. I never know how to say it. I try to say it really fast. I'm going to say it fast. So when we first met with today's panel, Christine joked that she was well qualified to moderate this conversation because she's been turned down for a lot of grants. And while that might be true, as it is for anyone who has been in the nonprofit work for more than about 5 minutes, the full truth is that Christine also knows how to get grants. So she brings real experience, humor, and insight into this conversation, and I know she'll guide us through a thoughtful and useful conversation. So please help me welcome Christine and our panel.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Am I on? Yeah. Well, great to be with you today. I'm very excited about this. I've never really moderated, so we have a little grace. I'm really passionate about this topic because, as Kathy said, I've been turned down a lot. And my first nonprofit, before I came here 6 years ago, I wrote one grant. And it was to San Francisco Foundation for computers. Yes, I said computers, because for $5,000 at that time, I could actually buy a couple of computers. So when I came to this nonprofit in 2019, I'd never really written a grant before. And 2 months into my beginning job, COVID hit. And they had just got this big grant that was going to expire during the COVID era. And they scaled up to like 10 people. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to learn how to get money because I can't afford a grant writer. So I got to figure this out. And it was real easy at that time to get money because they were throwing money at people that were on the front lines. But I kept telling my board, in 2 years, we're going to be in trouble if I don't figure out beyond these emergency funds. So I learned very quickly, and I've written a lot of grants. I've gotten turned down a lot, but I try to tell my development people, don't cry, just keep going. But I think this conversation is really important, and I wish I had it 6 years ago, because when you're shooting out all these grants, there's a more strategic and collaborative way to do that, and I think it would save a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So I'm hoping today, all you development people out there, and you're doing amazing work, I'm hoping you take some nuggets today. This is just the start of a conversation. I'm hoping it will continue on. So thank you guys for coming here today. We're going to rapid fire through your name, your organization, and kind of your geographical area, and maybe the type of grants you typically fund. So we'll start with you, Judy.
And I know that I'll get the mic taken away from me, so I will be quick.
It might happen.
And I love it.
I'm not like,
because I want to hear from my fellow panelists. First, I want to say thanks to the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance for this invitation, and I also appreciate my panelists. And all of you who are doing just amazing work. So I just want to start with that. My name is Judy Lopez. I'm the managing director at the California Endowment. We're not a regional foundation, we're a statewide health foundation, and we're about to embark on our 30th year as a health foundation. We think very broadly around health. The bulk of our work, we've kind of had 3 chapters of our work, which was, we were very healthcare focused in our first 10 years. Then we really shifted to really being deep place-based and state policy work. And right now we're in sort of the assessment of what is the next chapter of our work. We believe that community knows what they need, and we believe in approaches that support leadership development, health, and systems work. We really value the work that you're all doing, and we also recognize that, similar to what Christine said, we are not able to accommodate all the requests that we get, but we do really think about our role as a partnership with you all and partnership with other funders to really ensure that people have the same opportunities we all want. Places to dream, places to feel safe, places to be healthy, places to thrive, and that's really sort of at the genesis of our work. So I'll stop there and punch in the wallow.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Eduardo Orlando Gonzalez. I use he, they pronouns. Just want to plus one and deal Judy's appreciation for being here. I'm a program officer with the San Francisco Foundation in our what we call our Power Pathway. We're a regional community foundation, been in the Bay Area for over 75 years. We serve 5 out of the 9 Bay Area counties, and those 5 counties include Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo County. And a lot of our work is really towards our North Star of racial equity and economic inclusion.
Hi, good morning. So wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm Alexandria Cooley, Managing Director of Grants Administration at East Bay Community Foundation. We'll soon be celebrating our 100th year, and we serve in Alameda and Contra Costa counties. A couple of our focus areas are around power building, the arts, and economic opportunity.
I am Michelle Walker-Wade with Sandia National Laboratories. I'm the Community Relations Specialist. I lead up all the community involvement activities from our Livermore site. Our headquarters is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The Livermore site is about 10 to 12% of the entire labs. Our focus areas for grants are coming in 2 pillar areas. One is family stability, and that's whatever things that are needed to help create safe and stable environments for children, but it's for their families. So that's one area, so that could be housing, it could be food, it could be crisis, things like that. And then our other focus area is education outreach, and our priority is STEM education outreach. We do fund some literacy and basic ed, but that typically only happens if we don't have enough STEM opportunities to fund. Our grant, total grant budget is $217,000, which isn't a ton of money. So we're looking more for projects and programs, and we look to make an impact with whatever we can. Our region that we focus on can go as far south as Fremont, as far north as Berkeley, and then into the valley as far into the valley as probably Lathrop or Manteca. We'll go to Stockton if it's really, really compelling, and we haven't found it anyplace else. And that's probably the same for Fremont as well.
Hi, my name is Kevin Greenlee. I am with the Pleasanton North Rotary Foundation. Rotary International is a group of around 34,000 clubs. And Dennis and I represent 2 different clubs in the Tri-Valley. There are 6 in just the Pleasanton, Dublin, and Livermore area. And we have a foundation formed. Each club has different focus on their giving. Our club is pretty general. We are very generous with not only our dollars, but also with our effort. And we enjoy partnering with nonprofits in getting our hands dirty and putting the money that we provide to work.
Great.
Thanks for inviting us. Anyway, I'm Dennis Gams. I'm the president of the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. And basically, we're the 501c3 giving arm of each of the Rotary clubs in Livermore. So it is different from Pleasanton. They have 1 club, 1 foundation. We have 2 clubs, 1 foundation. And our members of our board are composed from members of each of the clubs. And just to summarize Rotary a little, we're volunteers. And so we're not paid folks. We get our enjoyment through getting our hands a little dirty. I don't know if that's the right word, but hands-on, we're hands-on. Anyway, we serve the Livermore Valley, and basically that's Livermore and the surrounding area. And we give through annual grants to those in need in the Livermore area, and basically that includes youth, seniors, those that are underserved, and the other thing we do that's talk more about later is community projects. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Okay, so our first topic is setting priorities in a shifting landscape. So we'll start with the regional organizations first. Briefly describe your funding philosophy and how you set strategic priorities. We'll start with you, Jean.
Okay, great. Just get this closer. Everyone can hear me? Okay, great.
You know, I think setting priorities is really important, and I want to go to something that Christine shared earlier. You as an organization have priorities. Some of you aren't able to do everything you want to do for your community, and that goes with foundations as well. And so I think for us, really again, as a foundation that was started in health, that's a sort of foundational priority for us. We really sort of think of health holistically, but really what are the conditions and systems that either promote or impede health. So that's number one for us. The second is around racial equity. We believe and we know that there are conditions that are historical and they're intentional. And so we think about racial equity in terms of really what does it mean to have the same outcomes and opportunities based on the color of your skin or where you live. So that's another important sort of both approach, priority, and values that we have. And then the third is really around how do we think about more enduring change? When we think about systems change, what does it mean as we think about the potential dismantling of healthcare across the country? When we think about economic opportunities or lack thereof across the country. And so we really have that systems orientation when we think about our work, and so we really value projects, but we also think we're trying to really codify and institutionalize changes and practices within systems and jurisdictions. So those are kind of the way that we think about priorities. The landscape is hard, and so I just really first want to commend all of you who are just doing work to make your community better. There's nothing criminal about that. And so, you know, really thinking about the shifts that are happening, the funding and the hostile speech that is happening for many communities that we care about is real, and I don't want to discount that. And it's something that we all have to take ownership on and really push against collectively, not individually, but collectively. And so one thing that we also consider in our priority setting is how does this organization connected to other organizations in the region or ecosystem? How does this really elevate and promote efforts that really legitimize we all should have the opportunity to be healthy, full stop. And so that's how we think about priorities. For us right now, we are also thinking, because we are a state health foundation, really thinking about what are the ways that we can continue to promote civility and civil society. And so those are some of the areas that we're thinking about as priority setting. And I think it's really important for you all to be clear. What are your priorities? What's your lane? What do you feel like you're best situated to do? And for us as funders, we're making that assessment not on a value of your project. I'm sure they're all amazing, but we're making an assessment based on, is this a good fit in context of the 700 plus organizations that we fund up and down and across the state?
Thank you.
Yeah, for San Francisco Foundation, like I mentioned, our North Star is racial equity and economic inclusion. And so what that looks like in our grant making is kind of like three distinct portfolios. The first one is around housing affordability, so really thinking about how we're supporting organizations that are producing affordable housing, that are protecting the rights of renters, and that are preventing homelessness in the region. We know that housing affordability is a huge issue in the Bay Area, and so the San Francisco Foundation has really stepped into playing that role, not only to give out grants and support organizations, but also thinking about, we are also considered a 501c3, so how can we also do our own lobbying? How can we also do our own giving to 501c4 organizations that are running ballot measures, that are really orienting towards that kind of like systems and policy work change here in the region? And so that's kind of one of them. The second one around economic inclusion is around our workers' rights portfolio and decriminalizing unjust fines and fees. So really thinking about how we're supporting, workers' rights, fair pay, worker protections across the region. And third is around our power building work, which is really thinking about more issue agnostic, but thinking about how we are supporting an ecosystem that is supporting organizations that are doing organizing, policy advocacy, leadership development of grassroots leaders here in the region. And so those are kind of like the three priorities that we've kind of like been doing for the past few years. A lot of it has been through constant communication of long-standing grantee relationships to really give us that feedback of like, yes, you're on the right track. Housing affordability for sure always comes to the top. I'm sure you all can resonate with that. And so we really consider ourselves as not only a funder of giving out grants, but also how we are leveraging our power as a convener to bring different stakeholders together to try to solve this housing affordability issue, and how we're also doing our own lobbying with elected officials, with signing on letters of support. Last thing I'll mention is, I'm mainly going to speak around our programmatic funding. That's where I am. The second arm of our work is through donor advised funds that community foundations hold, which is a whole other kind of space that isn't as clean cut as our program side, right? Because oftentimes those spaces is informed by what the donor interests are. But we try to do a good job about translating what we're hearing in community to educate donors to then do some more aligned giving with what we're hearing is needed on the ground.
So just to add on to the Donor Advised Fund, I would say first and foremost at East Bay Community Foundation, we're really thinking about how do we ensure folks can dream, heal, and belong in community. And so that looks like for us, as I mentioned before, thinking about economic opportunity. So whether that is supporting small businesses who are struggling with staying open, being open, maintaining their footprint in community, supporting individuals, thinking about housing, thinking about job opportunities, as well as the arts. We know that the arts are such a vital part of keeping our spirit just alive and free, documenting what's going on in community. So we have a long history of supporting the arts. And then lastly as well, power building. So again, the C4 work, thinking about ballot measures, thinking about how do we ensure that we are at the forefront of our basic freedoms. The donor advised funds are definitely another big part, and some that I'll maybe be able to get to a little bit later, but again, it's around educating our donors. But when we're thinking about setting priorities, I will say in the last few years, you all know, you're feeling it, the landscape shifts constantly. The ground under us is always moving and rumbling. And so I think for us, it's how can we be most responsive to what are the needs that are popping up. And those needs are popping up much more frequently. The shift is happening much more frequently. So for us, it's how can we be responsive while still staying focused on our overall goals, but recognizing that the needs of community are shifting and we have to be able to shift with that as well.
Great. So you kind of all three went into the second question. So thank you. It'll keep us moving. But do you have something else you want to add, or any one of you before we move on to the local?
Yeah, I want to just appreciate Lalo and Alexandria for raising something that I think was really important. Is sometimes you think of foundations just as grant makers, and when we think about power building or leadership showing up in this moment, we're also institutions. You're institutions, and so a couple things that we're also being more intentional about is how do we show up for people who don't have a voice, who aren't seen as visible in this moment. So that's something that we really take to heart. And then the other part is when you think about grant makers, especially institutional foundations, their payout is anywhere from 5 to hopefully more. 5% is the floor of giving that foundations have, but that means 95% of assets are invested. And so for us, and probably some of my other colleagues, we're going, what are we going to do with that 95% that still advances our mission? That really sort of promotes the work that we envision and that we know communities deserve. And so there's the grant making, and then there's like, how do we actually use our investments and push other institutions, other businesses to really promote health.
Great. Thank you so much. Now we're going to turn to our local funders. From your local vantage point, what community needs feel the most important to you guys right now?
I'll go ahead and start. As a community service organization, our hands are in the community. We are the community. And most of us bring to the table when we join Rotary some of our own passions and self-interests. But as a foundation, we really want to make our part of the world just a little bit better. And we've given everything from small grants to help a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, earn their badge, We've helped Sunflower Hill. Most recently, we enjoyed providing the money for raised garden beds and then assembling them ourselves. So it's up to the community to come to us and to come to the other Rotary clubs and other foundations that have money to give, to share their story and kind of pull on our heartstrings. So I think that's what resonates most with us. We welcome any of you to come to a Rotary Club meeting and make a presentation to our members, explaining to us what it is you do and how you help our community. And in turn, we invite you to come and make a presentation to our own foundation to earn some of our money.
Great, let's go on to Michelle next.
Thank you. Thank you. So Sandia National Laboratories is a federally funded laboratory. And so that does guide and how some of the ways that we show up in the community and some of the ways that we're able to show up in the community. So when we look at what our primary mission is as a laboratory, it's national security. And so when we kind of trickle that down to local, it's what can we do to help keep communities safe? So there's national security, there's local security, but it has to come from within, from the lens of family stability and education outreach, which I mentioned earlier. So when we look at through those lenses, keeping communities safe has to do with how we can make an impact to keep people housed, keep people fed, keep people from doing things that make them fall into crimes. And so the vantage point has, of course, for us all is housing affordability. At our funding level, we cannot impact housing affordability, but we can help the organizations that do go out and do that, make those, do some policy making and whatnot. Where we have to draw some lines is when we get into lobbying and advocacy. So that's part of it. We also look for employment stability and job accessibility, specifically for new college grads who right now are having a difficult time, many of them finding work. We have a concern about what's going on with the loan crisis, because that's also impacting our communities. And so we look for ways to help mitigate from get in front of it. Mm-hmm. So how can we help kids have the skills and understanding of what it takes to be, in our case, the next scientist, the next engineer, and the support staff who helps those professionals to do what it takes to then keep the nation safe. And so we kind of look at things from that lens, and that's where we try to make an impact and where our priorities lie.
I really love that because prevention is so key. I feel like there's always funding for that transactional, crisis, but that preventative work to get before in terms of the crisis is awesome. Do you feel like anything has shifted in your priorities with the current landscape?
Absolutely. With us being a federally funded organization, whatever happens at the federal level, whatever changes in policy, whatever executive direction comes from our federal government, which we all know who our federal government is and what their position is on things, that impacts us directly in what we can do. So, for example, we went from one extent of years really going hard on climate resilience to being completely silent on climate resilience, just because things changed. We went from really promoting things for girls, getting girls into the sciences, getting girls into engineers, to now, whatever we do, it's girls and boys. So, for example, we had a program called STEM Day for Girls, which was for 4th and 5th grade girls. We ran it for girls. So this year, for the first time in 2026, it was STEM Day for kids, and we invited the boys to come along, but we still kept the boys and the girls separate.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, let's go down to Dennis.
Thank you. So I would echo a lot of what my fellow Rotarian Kevin said. We're a grassroots organization. We reflect the community in that way, and so the grants that we receive reflect the needs of the community. In our process of evaluating that grants are through a committee of members of our clubs, our Rotarians. And so that then will reflect our priority in essence. So that's our grant program, but you know, this year did give us some challenges from federal funding. And so we're able to implement what we call a community project. And in this case, it was providing emergency food. We did it through 3 local nonprofits. And that was, we did that within a couple of months. We were able to raise over $100,000. And so that was a need that the community saw and they donated to. So that is something that is, as time goes on, where there's an identified need, that's what Rotary can do, is bring that focus on that community need. Anyway, I would just say there's 2 things that are different from projects than award grants, at least 2. One of them are initiated by
Actually, we're
Rotary.
going to go into that a little.
That's okay.
I have a special question for you around that.
Okay,
Can you hold that until?
I can hold that.
Can you remember? Okay.
No, that.
I'm sorry. I have a microphone. Okay. Topic number 2. What makes, now this one's really important, okay? What makes a nonprofit partner stronger for you? So let's start again with our regional. Is it beyond a strong mission? What signals do you, like this organization is strategic, effective, and ready for investment? We want to know, like, how do you choose that? Like, how do you, let's start with you, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think, so a few things about the San Francisco Foundation is that we're an invitational only organization, and so we don't have an open application. We do have that for 2.
So how do you get an invitation?
So we have that for 2. We have Rapid Response Fund for Movement Building and our Fates Initiative that are you can apply for. For the invitation, it is oftentimes us, doing our own research. Honestly, a lot of funders talk to one another as well. And so sometimes when we want to get an assessment of a certain geography, we reach out to other funders to kind of get a sense of who's in your portfolio, who's in our blind spot that we don't know about. When we then we reach out, have a warm introduction, have a conversation. There's 3 things that at least my team kind of looks for. One is really understanding the focus of the organization. So if the organization understands what is their lane and their contribution in the context of that region or that issue area, understanding what is their role in the broader ecosystem of the nonprofit sector. So what is the special add-on or, work that they're doing with specific demographic or a different approach that they're doing around the issue. And lastly is around their leadership and governance. So thinking about, is the leadership reflective on the community that they're serving? And also, is there an opportunity for residents or young people, grassroots leaders to be part of the decision making, whether that's a position in the board, or is there some kind of like task force that there is constant feedback loop to help, address the shifts or the program priorities for that specific organization.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, we have our DAFs and then we have our program areas. And, I think the visibility piece is such a key point. It's knowing, is that person, is that organization really on the ground? Are they listening to community? Do they understand? And are they responding to the current needs? And so that is a really big piece, because even with our DAFs, as Lalo mentioned, we will do a lot of donor education. We'll have donors say, this is the specific area I'd like to fund. Who is doing that work already? And whether or not that work is in our core portfolio or not, us being tapped into who is already acting in that way is really important. As Lalo also mentioned, funders do talk. So it's helpful to just continue building that relationship. Even if you're having an event and a funder doesn't show up, just inviting them to that event, letting them know what's going on, letting them know what your programming is, providing a recap, having photos, using that social media, that is a big piece of just keeping people within the ecosystem, because there are a lot of pulls. In 1 week, I would say that our staff of 30, at least half of our staff are attending some type of community event, whether it's adjacent to the work that they personally love or the work that they're leading, we're out in community. And so I think that visibility of just sharing, hey, we're having this event, please come. Even if somebody doesn't come, just keeping that awareness is a really big piece as well.
So tell me the truth, are you looking at our social medias, are you looking at our website? Do people still look at websites?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I
We
lead
gotta
our
get those up to date.
grant making efforts, and so if our If our donor, for instance, we have about anywhere from 30 to 200 grants per week just from our donor advised funds. That's not even from our core grant making. And so any grant that goes out the door, I look at every single organization's nonprofit, particularly if they're local. And so that's how I'm able to tap in and say, oh wow, I didn't realize they were doing this great work. This other donor might be interested. Let me tell our fundraising team who works at our donor services. Or let me tell our community investments and programs team who leads our internal grant making. So that social media, the website, just knowing about the events, it does actually really matter.
Good to know. That's awesome. Okay, Judy, anything you want to add to this?
I would just say that having a strong nonprofit is a verb. It requires sort of you being sort of constantly assessing where did we start, where we are today, and where are we trying to go. And I think that also goes for us as funders, you know, really calibrating sort of the strategy, priority areas. I think in addition to what Alexandria said, you know, Candid is a place where you should have your updated 990s, your board of directors, you should have all that really up-to-date, accessible. I think it's also being able to clearly say, as an organization, this is what we're really good at. And being able to talk about it in that, however you want to talk about it. Don't let a funder change your identity as an organization. Keep true to who you are, and I think, at least from my experience, I've been doing this for a couple of decades now, it's really important to kind of feel that heart and that intention and that connection to kind of what your mission is and what you're trying to accomplish. I think also being very humble around like where you fit, similar to what Lalo was saying, in the region, on the issue, in the sort of ecosystem, and really just being clear around, this is what we want to do, this is what it actually costs. I feel like nonprofits constantly, and it's hard, because the way the funding is at multiple levels, the federal, state, local, and then with foundations, but be honest about what it actually takes to do the work.
So overhead, is that the overhead to do
I think it's
it?
just everything. I think it's from like, what do you want to pay your staff? If you're really about community work, are they getting paid a living wage? Do they have health benefits? But it's, I think, really just being honest about what this work takes, what the challenges are, and how you're connecting with other partners in the ecosystem. So I think it's an active part of your program work and also the organization infrastructure that you're developing.
So I have a question. I'm adding something. If you don't get an invitation, can you reach out and kind of like, hey, can you look at us? You know,
Like I mentioned, right? Like oftentimes, maybe if you're funded by another foundation and you know someone in that, like in San Francisco Foundation, you can ask your program officer, hey, can you do a warm introduction? We have like our programs at SFF, you know, email that y'all can reach out to as well. But I think the best way to get into contact with invitational only foundations is through that warm handoff from other funders.
Okay, that's good.
And I would say that most of the funders, I mean, the three of us all work together. So we'll oftentimes have funding tables or just opportunities where 3, 4, 5 foundations are putting money in together to support a particular cause. It might be housed at one foundation, but there are probably multiple regional funders or national funders who are supporting that work.
That's great. Okay, good information. Love it. Keep asking your questions, you guys. Okay, local funders, how do relationships, local visibility, and community knowledge shape your funding decisions? Let's go to Dennis, because I cut him off.
Oh.
So I'm going to give you the floor this time.
I like going after
Don't talk about that
Kevin.
question.
You have an answer for me then. Anyway, I would say Rotarians are part of the nonprofit with their club, but they also, many of them are in other nonprofit organizations, and it's through those relationships where we receive a lot of grant requests. And so it's kind of a two-way street, you know. So if a Rotarian thinks of a nonprofit is doing something that benefits the community, they belong to that. So that strengthens, you know, their possibility of tuning in to what the community needs. So they're just basically, they're plugged in. I will,
So what,
I'm
let me go
gonna,
to this. What helps the nonprofit to stand out? So you're in different spheres of influence. So what rises a nonprofit to the surface in your eyes?
you know, I think that you can look at our club members, and a lot of them are former educators. We get a lot of school-related, education-related, but then it kind of runs the gamut. There's a lot of youth. We do have a little focus on youth for our stuff, but we don't preclude anything. And I guess that we can be responsive to needs as they arise. So there isn't a formula to say what's going to do that, because it's basically the community needs.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Kevin, you want to comment?
So let me add on to what Dennis said. Rotary clubs are a unique funding opportunity because we have weekly meetings. And you can be a speaker at our weekly meetings and educate us on the wonderful work that you do for our community. We don't, and we specifically ask that you do not ask for money at those meetings, but we encourage you to file a grant request with our foundation.
Do you just show up? Do you just show up? Or?
You can, contact our Rotary Club and get on our meeting calendar. We meet weekly.
Do that.
So that's one easy way to break the ice. The second that makes you stand out with us is to partner with us, help us raise our money. We just held our big gala fundraiser a few weeks ago, and a few of the nonprofits that we supported us. They ran the event for us so we could sit down and enjoy it. So it's a great win-win for us. It gains a lot of traction the next time that grant request comes by. We remember that they were part of our fundraising.
How about you, Michelle?
What makes a local nonprofit stand out, especially when we're evaluating a grant application? We really look over those grant applications, and we don't stop there.
You actually read them?
We
Line for line? Thank you.
read
Oh my
them line
gosh.
for line.
That's awesome.
We look online to make sure you're in compliance. We look at the...
Where do you look online?
We look at the
Where you look at the
IRS website.
Ah,
We
okay.
look at the Franchise Tax Board, and we look at the California Registry to make sure you're still in compliance in all of those places. We're federally funded. We look at your website, your mission, your social medias, to make sure everything looks aligned, and what you're asking us, what you're saying you're going to do with these funds, whatever program or project. We're really trying to vet to make sure that it is structurally sound, that you are being a good financial steward over what you do have, and just making the best of it. We look to see who you're partnered with. Are you partnering? Are you out there by yourself? Two are better than one. Are you out there by yourself? So we look for that. We also look to make sure, we want to make sure that it's non-discriminatory. So we get applications from nonprofits that we can clearly tell, I'm going to just use this as an example because this isn't the only one. We can clearly tell that the applicant or the person who wrote it is of one religious denomination or another. But then when we go look to see how you're serving the community, can the community still receive whatever it is that you're serving without having to be... Exactly. And that has an impact. If it looks like you won't feed us unless we can, then, that becomes problematic. So we look for that. And then we also look to see, do we believe that our employees would have the opportunity to volunteer with your organization? And not ongoing volunteerism, just like come volunteer and go back to work, because we need them to come back to work. We need them at work.
Because you pay them while they're volunteering, right?
Not always.
Oh, okay.
Not
It's
always.
really volunteering.
Sometimes. If it's a volunteer, if it's what we call a team building volunteer event, so they come as a work group, then they'll get paid because they came as a part of their workday, and that takes some coordinating. But when we do volunteerism outside of their work hours, like on Fridays or Saturdays, that's completely volunteer for them.
Great. Okay, how are we all doing? You're breathing? You're good? Okay, you thinking of questions? Okay, we're going to turn into the sustainability and fit. And I'll start with you, Judy, this time for when you assess whether it's kind of similar to what we were talking about, but maybe a little more in the weeds now, whether you assess an organization itself, or are you looking at the leadership, the staffing, the revenues, the infrastructure, like, are you looking at those things? Is that important to you when you think longer term?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at all of, we're an invitation-only funder as well. We are exploring other options as for gifts that is more flexible with no proposal. But I think we are investing in the organization. And so all of those things in terms of, you have a vision and dream of doing work that's actually $1 million, but your operating budget is $25,000. So like really just understanding sort of the connection between what you have in terms of financial resources, the board leadership that you have, the volunteer base that you have to actually achieve the mission that you're saying, I think is important. Sustainability, I will say my own opinion, is really just, I think, difficult to attain in a society where we don't sort of support social and health infrastructure. And so I think it's also important to be honest about, we know very well the funding landscape, the increase in interest of funding has tripled, quadrupled, whatever the number is, because we're not investing in projects, many of the ones that you're leading, and other projects that we are already supporting. So sustainability, I think in the context of this moment, is I think really unfair. So I'm just gonna say that. But the fit really does matter, and I think it's really important, kind of going back to a question you had earlier, which is know your funder. We're up here talking right now, we probably all have, very different ways, and that will also sort of not waste your time, because your time is precious. You're doing amazing work, so just go, is this a fit? And my obligation as a funder, we're out in community, we're talking all the time. That's actually the best part of the job, is we get to learn and understand all these amazing projects, but we do have to say no. And so, our obligation around fit is saying, what you're doing is amazing and so vital. Keep doing it. It's just not a good fit for funding. That no today may be a yes in 3 months from now or a year from now, but we can also build a relationship and a partnership that extends beyond grants. I know you need the grants, so I'm not Pollyanna about that, but I think the fit is really important in terms of like long-term relationships and sort of what you're trying to accomplish in your community or on your project.
Michelle, you want to comment on that?
Can you re-ask the question?
Oh, yes, sir. Or actually, I'm going to go to Alexandra and then we'll go. It is when you assess whether an organization itself, not just the programs, are you looking at the staff, the leadership? Do you even look at the board, the infrastructure, the revenue? Like, are you looking at all those things, or is one thing more than the other?
Yes.
You can vote. But,
Yes, we look at all that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the entire ecosystem is so important. So we're thinking about the board. How are they involved? Are they engaged in the day-to-day? Are they giving their thought pieces, or just really showing that they're committed to this work? The staff, what is we know that turnover is real, so I think but just understanding who's really leading that work. How long has that work been going on for? I think being authentic in the work that you're doing. As already stated, yes, we understand folks need the funds today, and also we have to still think about the long term, still think about that relationship building, because yeah, sustainability is challenging. I mean, we just don't know what tomorrow may bring, right? But we do know that building those relationships is helpful, because you're at SFF one day and maybe at EBCF the next, right? But those relationships also continue to carry on. We're able to think about how do those organizations fit into the changing landscape and ecosystem. So while one organization may not be the right fit today, something can drastically shift in the next few months where we say, oh, I met them, I know the work that they're doing, they would be a great person to respond to this X, whatever the need is at the moment. So I do think that relationship building is important. And then, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Laura, do you have any?
The only thing I'll add, plus one to what everyone has said, is we also are curious about your diversifying your funding sources. So we do ask of like, who are your other funders, whether it's philanthropy or county, city, government funding. So we also like to see that there's diverse funding, sources, and that you're not just depending on one funding source, because that kind of also proves to us, right, that funding source is gone one day, then the sustainability may not be as possible in the long term. So don't be surprised if funders, point blank ask, what are your other funding sources, and can you name them, and what is your overall kind of like operating budget?
So would you say, I feel in my gut there's some nonprofits out there that maybe they're smaller and they haven't been around a long. Would you say reaching out to you just to start a relationship is good, because there's no historical sustainability yet, right? So would you say don't waste your time coming to us yet, like go to the Rotaries first, for a couple years and then come back, or how would you address that?
Yeah, going back to what folks have said, like relationship is so critical. I think even asking for feedback of like, hey, so philanthropy, at least for SF Foundation and regional foundations, we have like a bird's eye view of the sector and of the nonprofit ecosystem across the region. And so it's always helpful to ask like, how do you see our role in relation to like other folks, either in other parts of the county or in other parts in our community, to also make connections, of other nonprofits or to other funders. And so that relationship, is not just around that transactional check, right, that we can give, but it's also some, feedback, some, pointers about who you can talk to, whether that's other peers that you think you should be partnering with, and or other funders that you think are more aligned with, your mission statement.
Great, and we're going to go into collaboration in just a second, but I want to go over to the local and ask you guys a couple questions. Your organizations often fund things that don't look like a traditional grant, which I love. One-time projects, event sponsorships, equipment, and immediate community need. What kinds of asks are the best fit for you? So I'm going to leave you with that question. But Dennis, I want you, after maybe Kevin and Michelle speak, I want you to share specifically about the project you're doing, because you're starting to do that beyond the endowment grants. So get your wheels turning, but let's start with Kevin, first.
Okay. Our Rotary Club is pretty general. We don't really have any barriers or walls around our money. It really is giving from the heart, trying to make a difference. We can't help everybody, but we can certainly help someone. We also have another unique opportunity being part of Rotary International in tapping global grant funds. So we can do not only small local gives and meet your ask, but we can also take some of your ideas and turn them into something that's going to make a difference in this world. Rotary International is a very well-endowed organization. I've seen the power of it, and it awes me. So never be afraid to approach a Rotary Club and see what's possible. But we definitely are diverse in our giving. I've seen a lot of interesting things that we've done, and it warms my heart to be a part of it.
Great. Michelle?
We do some one-time grants. They would still have to do the same application process. And because most of what we're looking at are programs and projects sometimes, a lot of times, are one-time, not events though.
Okay,
They're
no
one-time
sponsorships.
projects.
Well, you sponsored this, didn't you?
We do some sponsorship. This is an ongoing collaboration. We do some sponsorships. Most of our sponsorships, they would be unsolicited, and it would basically be with who we consider our primary partners. And most of our primary partners know who they are. And so they come and say, we've got this going on, or we know it's coming, and so we already kind of set the funds aside for what we know is coming. And as long as things pretty much stay the same, sometimes I'll say, what's going on with the education topics this year, you know, to Kathy, just to see what's going on and make sure it's still something that Sandia name can and logo can be on. But yeah, we do those, but we don't do galas, we don't do runs, and those type of events. We don't do those anymore.
Okay, good to know. Okay, Dennis.
So I wanted to start with the organization's question. In terms of grants, I don't know what a traditional grant is, but I would say we like one-time grants. They're perfectly welcome. And we, on the other hand, if something can't be sustainable, if it's an ongoing grant for us to do. So I don't know what exactly a traditional is, but I think I've stated it before. We tend to support youth, seniors, schools, anything education, VA related, and underserved and disadvantaged, very broad. And now I'm ready to go to community, if you want me to do that. So,
100%.
So the community projects are something that the foundation has done a little sporadically over time. And this last year we approved 3, but I should give you our definition. A community project, it's a capital asset or program support funded in part or total. It's pretty broad. Some of the key things is the projects are initiated by Rotarians. It doesn't mean the idea can't come from somewhere else, but it gets, as opposed to a grant where we ask for things, we get to initiate that. And a lot of times the work is really in raising the funds for our project and support. In fact, we act in some cases like a bank. The project can go on, and then we can, until it's done, we could pay it and then do the fundraising.
So you paid up front and then taken the money?
So there's 3 things. I already mentioned one, the emergency food grants essentially made. In this case, it was Open Heart Kitchen, City Serve, and Tri-Valley. So between the 3, there was over $104,000. And we got so many donations for that, we only had to take out less than $5,000 out of our endowment fund. So having something that really the community sees they want is what this capitalizes on. Another thing this year we approved is something called the Allen Frank Community Room. That train station over there is going to have a community room. It's going to be named after a member of the Noon Club. And it was really, we have 2 clubs. That's the older club. And is that right, Tim?
Older as in, it's been going longer? Oh, older as in, okay.
Well, in this case, it's to their benefit or their tribute that they came up with the project and then they folded it in with the foundation. So that had great support from Rotarians and outside donors. 104,000, I think that we may not even need to use our funds. We're the bank, so to speak. And then something that we approved that hasn't happened, we haven't made the payment yet, is Tri-Valley Haven rebuild. So we're going to provide security improvements for that. And we're going to do a fundraiser in August. We expect, with that focus, that the community sees the need for that we can do a fundraiser and raise all the money for it.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, I love what you're doing. That's amazing. Okay, my passion area, collaboration. And I've noticed this over my 6 years. The more I started collaborating with some of key nonprofits who are in the same lane, it's really strengthened our grant applications. So let's switch gears here. And how important to you guys, let's go to the regional, is collaboration, partnerships, or coalitions coming together, or matching support when you review proposals?
Yes, just to start off, as I mentioned, many of us as funders really are doing a lot of collaboration, recognizing, every foundation will have a different pot of money, a different amount of money, right? So whether it is $1 million, $2 million, 200,000, coming together as foundations is really critical for us. It also, I think, shores up the opportunity to make sure that there are multiple partners, because you don't just want to look at the foundations as just that bank, right? You also want to think about what is the power behind the foundation supporting the work. Long term, how can they provide professional development opportunities? How can they provide access to other opportunities? Serve around just being that voice piece for some of that work. I think as we're looking at nonprofits and whether or not they're collaborating, you want it to be authentic. You don't just want to collaborate just for the sake of doing it, but if you know that your collaboration can strengthen the overall work, it can increase the bandwidth, and it can increase the territory, it can provide you some strength around your project, then I would say go for it, do that. That shows that you can work collaboratively, you can really meet the various needs of the communities that you're serving. Whether there's an overlap in those physical, geographic communities or not, it just really underscores that we are tapped into what community truly needs. And furthermore, the community members may access different organizations for the same needs. And so then we know that we're tapping into the overall community as we see those collaborations. But I think, number one, it has to be authentic. Don't just do it to make a funder feel like, hey, we're collaborating. I mean, do it because you're actually knowing what your fellow partners are working on together and adding onto the strength of whatever that core project might be.
Yeah, I would say, due to that, collaboration is critical. Like I named, our foundation is really thinking about systems change work and policy change work, and we know that not one nonprofit can do everything that's needed to make the systems change happen, right? It takes years to do that in the first place. We need folks that are policy experts, we need folks that are great at communications, we need folks that are great at turning out people to go to a city council meeting, for example. We need folks that, are providing distinct, perspective, like Velas para Trans Latinas that I see here, right, that are providing like a perspective or an opinion from a certain demographic community that are sometimes not included in larger conversations around community change. And so for us, we really think about, when we do our grant making and portfolio, we really do take a step back to think about what is the ecosystem that we're supporting and what are the gaps that we may be, missing, whether that's geographic or demographic in terms of folks that are being represented or not. And so that collaboration is critical to really get into this long-term change that we're trying to see in the region. Because again, we don't expect one nonprofit to be an expert in every single piece that's needed to get to that goal.
We value collaboration, and we also know it's hard. It's really difficult to relinquish control, to be honest about what your strengths and weaknesses are as an organization or a leader. But we also know, and we've seen time and time again, that collaboration actually leads to more foundational, enduring change. And I would also say, as funders, we need to be better collaborators. And so we reference that, that I know with a couple of my panelists that we're always like, what about this? What are you doing in this? So as funders, we're also become, I would say, either advocates, or we also share the learnings that we hear from other folks. Like, I didn't know that this thing was happening in this community. And how are we thinking about this? So there's the collaboration on multiple ends, but it's vital. I mean, none of the things that I heard from your intros, the change will happen. You'll have amazing projects, you'll have amazing services, but there will still be barriers for individuals in your community to actually have improved conditions and improved opportunities. So collaboration is really important, and it's hard, and we know it.
What about you, Michelle? Collaboration is hard, but it is one of my favorite things to do, because it just makes things work out. When you're properly aligned with the people you're collaborating with or the organizations you're collaborating with, the outcomes are better, the burnout can be less. So Sandia, we fund some things and we collaborate. We collaborate with Quest Science Center. At one point, Sandia was doing what was called Family STEM Nights at 60 schools in 1 year. And when I came into this role, I said, this is not sustainable. So now what we do is we follow Quest. If someone wants Sandia, we tell them, if you get Quest, we'll come with Quest. But we won't come just us. So we have Quest in the Tri-Valley and Central Valley, San Joaquin County, Tracy area. We have some other similar organizations that we do the same type of collaborations with. And I didn't mention earlier, East Contra Costa County is the area we're moving into. And so we're working on a partnership or a collaboration with a STEM partner out that way to help bring some STEM education after school programs to the kids out there. It's not just what we look for, but it's what we do.
I see, I've been doing this 29 years, and I feel like collaboration, it keeps your individual organization in your own lane, where I see some organizations, they scale and they try to do everything, and they're going after those contracts, and they're getting project, okay, just to get some funding, and then they're spread so thin, so they're not as effective. So I think collaboration brings, we're like, okay, we're good at case management, they're good at food, they're good at shelter, and it's stronger together. What about you, Kevin?
Golly, everything that I've heard is, it's impressive. One thing that I want to suggest with regard to with Rotary and its members is that we probably are an untapped resource. And I'm looking at Andrew sitting there. He's a member of our club, but your alliance has tapped into some of his expertise. And so, we're a membership of the community. We are doctors and attorneys and lawyers and accountants and engineers. And if you have a need, we have a lot of people that have time to provide services. And so it's kind of thinking a little bit outside the box. Again, coming to a Rotary Club meeting and sharing your story and describing your needs to us. It may not always be financial. I want to interject that Rotary clubs are on a fiscal year. We turn over our membership positions on our different committees July 1. We get a new president each year. And so the calendars for many of the clubs are pretty open right now. So if you want to get on a speaking engagement for a Rotary Club meeting, now's the time to strike.
You heard it, folks. Okay.
So it's good going after my friend here. So our Rotary clubs, we represent the two in Livermore. That's north of probably 250 in the morning club, 150 noon. That's a lot of people you can, work with and collaborate with, and then at some time that need to trickle up the leadership that we want to have a speaker there. Kevin mentioned earlier, that is a good way, and it's been an important way to learn about projects in the community. So when I say speaker, each Rotary Club will have a program for their club meeting. And so you have to get through the docket. I think Livermore, the president-elect schedules those, but in any case, I go into detail there. But that's the other thing I'll mention on our grant, going back to our grant awards. On our application, you have to have a Rotarian sponsor.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know how long we've been doing that because I think we're still building on it. It's good if you know a sponsor ahead of time. Then you would have collaborated a little bit. If you haven't, then you can go get one assigned. But it gives you another way to discuss what the needs of our community are and to see how that might fit and help both parties. So I like that part of our forum.
So you go to the lunch, you call and say, can I do a presentation? Then they set up, and then while you're there having lunch, you connect with people at your table, make a relationship, and then hopefully they'll be your sponsor.
Yes.
Okay.
We meet at the Ale House on Tuesday mornings at 8 o'clock.
Okay, we're going to go into, this is our last set, and then make sure your questions are coming in, because we're going to turn to Q&A after this rapid fire, okay? 30 seconds each. Let's go through the first, there's 3 sets. 30 seconds each. We're going to go really fast, okay?
Yes.
And we're going to start here.
Okay,
We're
I'll
going
go.
to start from Dennis.
You can put Dennis. I'm fine. He looks like.
Okay, we're gonna start with Dennis.
Ready?
Okay, Dennis. For a nonprofit hoping to, well, you kind of just said this, to connect with you, what does the first step typically look like? A formal application, an invitation, a lunch, a relationship-based entry? You kind of said it, but do you want to add on to that?
Anyway, I guess there's 2 clubs in Livermore. They have websites. You can just show up at a meeting. You don't have to get a special invite.
Oh, okay.
And you can sit down and observe the meeting and see if there's common interest. You might talk to someone a little bit there to find out what maybe the next step for what you're doing is, I guess. But it's a way to tune into the culture, and you can see the other things we're discussing. I've been a member of Rotary for 26 years. I like go there for the programs that I hear all the time. They're very interesting, not just the people.
Okay. Kevin, 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. So, yeah, our grant request form is on a website. I invite all of you to come to a Rotary meeting and learn a little bit more about us. It's shocking how few people really know what Rotary is. And it's a great way to sit here someday and be on the board by joining and becoming a member.
So where do you meet and when?
So Pleasanton North meets Fridays at 12:15 at Haps in Pleasanton.
Okay. Great restaurant. Okay. Michelle.
Okay, Sandia's grant application is on our website at sandia.gov. You'll look under the About Sandia, and then under there, you'll see community involvement. And then that's where you'll find our corporate contributions program. Please read. Please read the application and the prior year report. And when you read the prior year report, specifically look for things from information from Livermore. What the New Mexico site funds and the level they fund at is different than California. So look specifically for that. It's not super glaring. It used to be. It isn't anymore. Our 2025 report will be a little clearer than the 2024. That's what you're going to look for and then just apply online.
And what's your grant cycle? Is it only applied today?
Our grant cycle, we have two, at present, we have two grant cycles. The first one, applications we're due in January. The next one coming up will be in June. Potentially next year, we may go to one grant cycle.
Okay. All right.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire, 30 seconds.
I would say stay tapped into EBCF's website. While most of our grants are invite only, we do have opportunities that pop up to support various causes that are maybe just rapid needs. So I would say stay tapped into our website and our social media for when there are applications. Send us an email about the work that you're doing, but make it pretty concise. You don't have to tell us every single thing right now, but maybe there's a really great event that's happening. That would be great. And also picking up the phone to call.
Okay. 30 seconds.
For SFF, as I mentioned, we have one open application process called the Rapid Response Fund for Movement Building. So you can look that up in our website.
Can you apply today?
It's open year-round. We do pause in July and in December for July for our end of year fiscal, and then December because our grants have been super busy with donor advice funds. But it's open year-round. Read the priorities and what we fund there on our website. And then for invitational, I encourage you either reaching out to our website programs at sff.org, linking, your website, talking a little bit about what you do, how you see alignment, and ideally a one-pager that kind of talks about, what your work has looked like.
Great.
For the California Endowment, we are invitation only, and I'll confess we have not funded a lot in the Tri-Valley region, but I think relationship is always important. We live and care about the community, so reach out. You can send an email, look for information on the website. We're always updating. You can find endowment staff on LinkedIn. But I think before you waste any of your time, talk and let's see if there's something that's potential, and if not, we'll maybe identify another funder.
So why haven't you funded any? Is it just nobody's applied, or
There's 58 counties. We're a statewide foundation, and so we've prioritized 4 regions. We are just sort of on the heels of a 14 place-based initiative and state policy work, and so right now we're in the process of reassessing priority regions. Again, our mission is not going to change and our values are not going to change.
Okay, thanks for your candor. Okay, so now we're going to go this way, 30 seconds. We have 2 more questions. Once support has been provided, or not, I'm just kidding, what does strong stewardship look like to you?
So I think, yeah, strong stewardship for us really means what you share with us around your intention, you're gonna follow through on. But what we don't want it to be is punitive. Like, things are out of our control when you're doing work in community. And so just being honest and candid about, like, we wanted to do this and this is what happened. So that's one. We, along with many other institutional foundations, have eliminated reporting. And so, again, that relationship, that conversation with your program contact is really important. And just be honest. I know there's a power dynamic, but just be really honest. This is what we want to do. This is what happened. This is where we need help.
Yeah, I just had, I think it was mentioned earlier, invite us to your events, to your meetings. It's great to kind of see you all in action as well. And so, yeah, we'd love to, or add us also to your newsletter, right? Even if the grant didn't come through, just add us to your newsletter, that way we can kind of get updates. And then, not randomly, but sometimes there are additional opportunities that come up for funding where there may be that window opportunity. And so the more we have you on top of mind, the more, you know, the better likelihood of us following up to within a funding opportunity.
I'll get really into the weeds, and it's going to be a unique answer, but have more than one person holding the project at your organization. Oftentimes, I was a federal funder for 10 years, and also on the side of working at nonprofits and being a grantee. And what I'll see is there's one person, there's a program director that is really passionate about this project, they're driving all of it, and then maybe they get promoted, or maybe they leave, they shift elsewhere, and then the project isn't being held anymore. I think it's so important to have the person who's holding the project, somebody in leadership, somebody on the board, maybe a volunteer, just recognizing while Death's bandwidth is really stretched already, somebody else has to hold that work beyond that one person for various reasons. And I think that's how you keep the funder connected to what's going on. I've reached out to so many funders, so many nonprofits, and I'm like, hey, we need this final report, because while we lean into trust-based philanthropy and don't have a lot of reporting, sometimes we are going to our funders, right? And we have to report back to them as well. And then it's like, nobody at this org knows about the project that was funded anymore. And so that's why I think it is so important to make sure the core projects are part of the ecosystem of the entire organization.
Yeah, that should be a good one. Anyhow, okay, Michelle.
Ditto the team.
Ditto. Okay, ditto.
Yeah, coming to our meetings, sharing your stories, showing pictures of the successes, having us be part of your activities. We love to show up and be a part of the solution. So even in informal comments, somebody we can read it at a meeting, just to share the good news.
Great.
Yeah, I would echo that, and in sharing it at a meeting, you could do it through the sponsor or your connection to Rotary. They could update that. In our club, we have a time where we invite those comments, and so it costs them $10, but if it's good, they'll report it.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Dennis, on this final question before we go to the audience questions. This is a hard one. If a nonprofit is declined, what is the best way to follow up respectfully?
So I'm learning that now myself. I was a sponsor on a project that was rejected, and so we don't have a formal process other than just contact the chair or the sponsor to explain it in an objective way that says these certain criteria were not met as well as someone else met them. And I've been learning that firsthand, so. But I think it's something we probably should formalize a little bit better in our process.
And do you like when somebody responds, like, thank you so much for the opportunity, what are ways that I can strengthen my application in the future? Do you guys like when people do that?
So Jeanette heard your question, and she'll have to address that next round when we go through it. We do annually do it. We just finished ours last week.
Okay.
And made our $232,000 of grant awards a week ago, so 26 applicants. And so we're just getting around to responding probably to some of those folks. So about half of the applicants were accepted, and the other half, of course, weren't. So
what about you, Evan?
Yeah, so we do 2 grant cycles a year, and I've been a board member for the last 2 years. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 that we had to say no to. And our foundation president contacts them directly to explain why. Some cases we have to adjust their funding amount so that we can fit it into our budget. We don't have unlimited funds. And this last grant cycle, we actually awarded double to almost everyone because we had the money and the
We
request.
love that.
The request.
We love when we
touched our
get that
hearts.
call.
And so it was a nice Christmas
Right.
present to those that applied for grants.
I think you guys did that with us a couple years ago. All of a sudden you're like, actually, we have all this money, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah, it was really at a critical time, so thank you. Okay, Michelle?
So if declined, or even if we just decrease the amount, you can always email us and ask why. Early on, I would actually respond to all of those requests. And then as time went on, I got to just giving every, no matter what you ask me, everyone gets the same generic bullet email. There was a couple reasons for that. Number one, it would seem like my responses became what was contributing to mission drift for some of them. And that's definitely not what we want to do. So that's one thing. Another thing is just the amount of time that it takes to respond to all those requests. We don't really have that time. And then something else that would happen by responding is that now people think they have a friend on the inside.
Yeah.
And I can be your friend, but when it comes to this, I'm not that much of your friend. So I don't want to give that false sense of security.
Okay, Alexander?
So speaking of friend, we'll pretend we're all friends in this room. And I'm going to give out-of-the-box responses, but remember that funders are people. We're just individuals, right? Yes, we work for these institutions or volunteer for these organizations that have a lot of money behind us, but we're people. There was a funding opportunity that was an open call, and an individual who didn't receive the funding, I know nobody in this room would do this, went on social media and was kind of speaking very negatively about our foundation and some of our staff who were a part of this process. And I just think we know that these are really challenging times, right? It behooves all of us as the do-gooders, as the helpers, to say that we are not going to go down to the bottom, that we're going to rise to the top, and we're going to continue to serve, create the beloved community, and figure out how do we continue to do this work, even though times seem desperate, right? So I think just remembering that funders are people as well, and so that is the important part. If you don't get that funding, yes, you can reach out. Yes, we don't want to have any false expectations. I'll be very honest with folks. I've done this work for a long time. I'll say, either this proposal wasn't well written, and maybe if I have the time, here's where I would have maybe changed it. Or this just does not fit into what we do, but maybe this other org might be a really great fit. But if you treat the funder like a person, you'll probably get somewhere with them, even if that's just relationship building, because that relationship building is such a big part of it.
My hunch is that you guys see how much money you have all these applications, and my hunch is that it's hard to say no to people, right? You're human. So we got to keep that in mind too. It's not like you're like, I want to, it's hard to make those decisions. And so I wouldn't want to be you. Nala,
Yeah,
let's wrap it up.
ditto to what folks have said. Part of our rapid response plan for movement building applications, since that is an open cycle, we do send an email of rejection and then provide a contact email for a specific person in the foundation instead of going through our program's general email. That way you have a direct contact. And if you do want to reach out to get feedback and or have a conversation about if you can reapply or what changes to make. And so that's a decision we made, just to be responsive to and open to community feedback and conversations.
I would just say we know, especially in the current environment, the funding climate is very difficult. I think we're getting definitely more interest than we have resources for. And I think we want to be in relationship. Alexandria, what you said, like it's okay you should be able to ask, like, why did I get it? Because it's important for us to be transparent and accountable around why that decision was made, and it does not mean the decision will change though. Usually when we're making those decisions, it's vetted through multiple channels within the organization, and they're hard. They're very difficult decisions. I wish I could fund every project that comes to sort of the endowment, but we can't, and we won't. And we will be very transparent with you around why we made the decision, and it is not a value statement on your work. Your work is so important, but we have to see where the alignment is, where our budget allocation, and it's important for you to ask. It's okay.
Okay, thank you guys so much. We are literally on time. Thank you so much. We got 2 minutes early, so now we're going to switch. If you guys can see the QR code, if you have specific questions. The top question that you guys wanted to hear, we talked about. So it was for those of you that don't accept unsolicited applications, how do we initiate a conversation? Do you feel with the head you got that answer? Okay, so let's go to the second one. It says, some foundations like Sunlight provide unrestricted support without follow-up reporting. Why don't more foundations trust nonprofits to wisely allocate funds? Who would like to take that?
Yeah, I can jump in. So I think our foundation does a really great job of trusting orgs to do the work that they do. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I worked for the federal government for 10 years as a grant maker, where we asked for everything. I think the best argument for why there needs to be some type of follow-up, even if it's just a conversation, even if it's just me coming to your event, is that we're also learning, right? So through the work that you're doing, we are following the trends of what is happening in the community, what the needs are, and what is actually working. So I also think seeing this opportunity to report back, even if it's just a verbal report, it gives funders a lens into this is actually how the landscape has shifted. This is where we need you all to come and meet us there. So even if a funder says to you, we don't need a report, we don't need anything, I would still say figure out some time in your most creative way. Don't recreate something. You don't have to make a dog and pony show. Don't create something just for us, but just let us know what's happening, because that's how we stay tapped in and at the ground level, right? That is how we stay proximate to actually know what is working in the community, what are the needs, and how can we shift our funding to be responsive to what is actually happening.
Great. A lot of people wanted to know, what events are you guys at? Like, how do they find you? Where are you hanging out and doing your build relationship? You're in the Rotary, so we're going to go lunch with you guys. Where are you, Michelle? Here.
Yes.
Every session here, for sure.
Follow me on LinkedIn.
Follow her on LinkedIn, okay? And what type of events are you going to regularly? Do you go to chambers? Do you go to Rotary? Socials?
We usually go to our grantee events or existing grantee, either community events, barbecues. But it's really.
So have an event and make sure you invite them.
Yeah,
That's the moral of the story. And send them your newsletters so they're totally up to date. Okay, what's the best? Okay, we already got that, you guys. Okay, how much? Oh. Okay, a lot of people. How much is your org, each of you, planning to increase funding in the coming year in response to the funding cuts and threats to our communities by federal government? Are any of you increasing your funding?
Yes.
Okay, I love.
We have doubled our grant making. We're up to 10%. That doesn't also. Because we hear and listen. I want to go to the events. I mean, part of why we go to events, why we go out in community all the time. I've been to all parts of California. And because we're hearing from folks how hard it is to actually care in their community. And so that was a grant commitment. I want to emphasize, we're also looking at our investments. We see our investments as another lever to change. And we're going to use our voice as an institution to kind of say, we care about people, full stop, and we believe that people have the right to be healthy.
Yeah, that's great. Shout out to TCE. Last fiscal year, this past year, we did a $15 million increase from our spending policy for the next 2 years. And so we have 1 more year of that, and hopefully we'll continue doing that, knowing that the need still continues. But yes, we did do some spending increase.
Yes, we have increased our investments as well. We've expanded some of the areas that we're supporting. For instance, we opened up a fund specifically for immigrants and then one for small businesses. I would also say something unique that we're doing, but not unique to community foundations, is we're tapping into federal, state, county funding. We know that it might be difficult for a smaller nonprofit to apply for those county grants, apply for those state grants. And so we've started to step into being the applicant and the holder of those funds and then getting them out.
That's awesome.
Community.
Those are a lot of work.
So that's a big way that we're also increasing our scope by serving in that role, especially because those grants tend to be cost reimbursable and organizations need the money today to buy the food and to do the services. So we're able to take on that brunt of the funding.
So Sandia did see a small bump this year. We went from $217,000 to $225,000 for our budget. But also what came with that was to make sure we're going into East Contra Costa County.
Okay. They're expanding territory. Okay. And you guys just have so much money.
Our giving is dependent upon our success of fundraising. So if we have a great year, we have a lot to give away.
Okay, I'm looking at these questions. Are you okay? Okay. A lot of them have been answered, so I'm just kind of going.
Can I answer that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because we have a formula for how much we grant each year. It's based on sustainable giving over time and its corpus. And as our endowment fund corpus increases, we will give away additional money. But you saw the emergency project we had. But in addition, when you get all the grants, you have the flexibility to meet the needs of the community each year for what they need. So that's basically how we're able to accommodate.
Okay. Recently, we are seeing some funders removing explicit language around gender, racial equity. Advice on navigating this for the trans immigrant serving organizations.
In transparency, I mean, we're all trying to keep our doors open, not be on any federal lists, not have any undue audits. But our values and our mission have not shifted. Our values have not changed. I could say that 10 more times. Our values are what they are. We are not absolved from threats as well. And so I think our goal is to just continue to be able to fund the great work that you all are doing, the work that our community needs, and to be mindful of the reality is if we want to be able to continue doing that work, we have to safeguard ourselves and our organizations as well as your organizations. And so, our conversations with you might look different than what our conversations look like on paper, but again, our values have not shifted.
Okay. You guys good if I move on to the next question? So because there's a lot.
I think the only thing that I would say is it's a moment in our society to really just elevate what are your priorities? Who do you stand for? What do you believe in? And to the questions that we asked earlier, that allows us to have insight into your organization, what you're dreaming, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build. There's nothing we're doing that's illegal.
Our organization is in a mid-range place in terms of annual budget. Is it possible to have too much money to be grant supported? I know with cities, they look at that. When I've had funding, because I was in a city council meeting when one organization had a ton of funding, a reserve that was pretty high, but they were asking for $10,000 or so. They said, well, you have $1 million, so they didn't get funded. But then we all want reserve, right? Because we don't know how the times are going to go. So would you say you look at that?
Let me interject on that. we don't have walls around our giving. If we have an organization that needs funds for a specific reason, and it may be a school district has, millions of our tax dollars, right? But they can't tap into it because of, a myriad reasons. So we're happy to make a difference and provide money to fix a broken stove in a culinary program at Village High School, because without it, they can't do their learning. So we're happy to step in, and help organizations, our school districts, teachers, whatever, because they aren't always able to access the funds that a common person would think they would.
I'll just add, for our rapid response fund for movement building, we do prioritize smaller organizations, but that doesn't mean that, large organizations will not get funding. The other thing I'll add is when we look at our portfolio, we also try to have a diversity of organizations, right? Not just representation, but also like size and geographic, reach and scope. And so sometimes that may also, when we look at our whole portfolio, we may make decisions to kind of have a balanced, diverse portfolio versus just leaning towards, one kind of organization.
And I would add just being able to tell your story. So if it looks like you're sitting on a lot of money, but the reality is that amount of money is just going to cover you for 6 months of operations and salary, then that's a story that you can tell. So I think just being in conversation, being in community, being in collaboration, so that we can understand what are we looking at here.
It is 11:44, we have 1 more minute, so I'll take 1 more question. What information do you provide DAF funders? Do you direct them to Canvid for nonprofit info or link them to another resource? Do you only say, okay, these two are great, or how do you do that?
So one, I'll say that East Bay Community Foundation is part of the Oakland Rotary, yay. And so we just try to stay tapped in across the board, even though I'm on the grants management team, and so I lead all of our grant making money out the door. We make sure that all of our teams, all of our staff are going to events. And so it might be somebody in finance who's going to an event, somebody you may never speak to who's on the finance team, somebody on IT. If we can be proximate, if we can see your great work, we're going to go back and we're going to be champions of your work. I have certain organizations, either because my children have been a part of those nonprofits or I've gone to an event, and I will just be singing them on the hilltops, right? I will tell everybody at my foundation, like, I love them, they're amazing. If a donor comes by and I get an inkling that they're interested in the type of work that I've already learned about, I'm telling them about it. So we try to highlight orgs, whether that be through our social media, through LinkedIn, through our website, through our blogs, but also through our physical presence, coming to those events. And then we share that with the donor, because sometimes a donor who has a DAF might come to us and they say, generally, this is what I'm interested in. And then we're also able to educate them and expose them. But on the flip end, I've had a donor who's in East Contra Costa doing a lot of work in Antioch with orgs that most of us hadn't even heard about, right? And so I think the education really does go both ways when we're talking about DAFs.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think I mentioned this earlier, but having a one-pager is also really helpful. I'm in my programs team, but then we have a whole other team that works with our donor advice funds. And so sometimes, donor might express interest on something, and then they reach out to us and say, hey, this donor's interested in XYZ, do you happen to know any orgs? And then that's kind of where the relationship starts. I'll be like, yes, here's a couple orgs, here are the one-pagers, or here's some information. So one-pagers are updated and talk about, what your year has looked like,
Keyword updated.
what are your outcomes for the past year, like successes, and that's like a great entry way for a conversation then to take place.
So tell me this, on the one pager, do you like data, do you like stories, do you like pictures, all the above? All the above. Okay, below, and people. And front and back's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, one question, one final thing. When we go this way, as you gotta run out of here to your next adventure, what is one nugget you hope that all these people here that came today, this is obviously an ongoing discussion, we didn't get through everything, but what is one nugget you would like to leave with them today, so that they can make sure that they're building relationships with you guys?
Yeah, and I apologize, I have to bop out of here right at 12, but just continue to be true to your mission and your values as an organization, and don't sort of try to put yourself sort of in what the funder wants. Really good.
Yeah, I'd say we're more than just like a check, right? Use us also as a resource for just exploring, understanding the region, understanding what we're hearing, what we're learning, to make other connections.
I would say two things. The pendulum always swings. And just keep hopeful, right? It looks like times are dark, but you know, we've had other dark moments, we've had other dark times, and so just keep going, keep being true to the work that you're doing, true to the community that you're serving in, and continue to push.
And in being true to your mission, with everything that's going on, don't get caught up in all the noise to the point that it impacts how you're carrying out the true part of your mission.
Rotary is a group of individuals that are very positive, doing positive things to make our world a bit better. So come join us, learn more about Rotary.
And you can learn about the Rotarian Foundation. If you look on our website, we list the past recipient awards, and hopefully that familiarizes ourselves with the needs in the community and help. And there'll be a grant application on it that you can sort through to see how you would fit to. And the Livermore has 2 clubs that you might want to join.
Can I interject? They're talking the Noon Club, the Old Club. We're the self-proclaimed world's greatest Rotary clubs. Why is the Noon House?
Well, thank you for allowing me to moderate. You guys have been really easy.
Thank you all, and I'm going to invite our regional foundations to see us, because as was mentioned, we are rarely funded from foundations outside of the area. So that's one reason we also like to invite you, so you can see that we are here. And we have people who live in poverty, who are in need, have mental health challenges, all the stuff. So please see us. And then also to invite you to our Power of Giving, which we will send a formal invitation, which will be, I think, is it November 12th this year? And it will take place right here in the vacant theater, although most people are out there. Yeah, it's a fun, feel-good evening celebrating the nonprofits and the work that they do in our community. Last year we had over 70 nonprofits represented, and we love to just raise our nonprofits up, and it's a good way to get a picture of the work that is being done in our area. And following this meeting, I will also send to each of you a list of the nonprofits who are here today, so you can just get a list in case you need to go back and check who was that, because I'm interested in that, and I'll try to give you their geographic area if we can as well. So I do appreciate you being here so much, all of you, and thank you. So as we come, this is my script now, so as we come to the end of today's program, again, I want to thank our panelists for being with us, sharing your time, perspective, and candor. These conversations are so valuable because they help nonprofits better understand not only where funding may be available, but how funders are thinking about community needs, impacts, partnerships, and the work ahead. I also want to thank Christine for moderating. I'm skipping your whole last name. Say it again.
Beach, Bamani, like going to the beach this weekend. Bamani.
Thank you. It's not spelled B-E-A-C-H.
It's B-E-I-T-S-C-H, it's German, it's fine.
Yeah.
But they don't say that because, you know. I'm still testing out my husband, so we'll see.
So I want to thank Christine for the great job moderating today's panel, and thank you again to our sponsors, Connect Philanthropy and Sandia National Laboratories, for making today's Grantmakers panel possible. We appreciate your investment in TVNPA. I think we're going to end a few minutes early, but we do have gifts. So do you have those? Yeah, we have just small gifts for our panel. Thanks for you guys.
I know, right? Under your chair, you get a card. You
Sure.
One other bag.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, so we're going to give those out, but we're not going to make you watch them get them. So thank you all for being here today. You know, again, your time is valuable, and we know how much work you have waiting for you when you leave this room. So my hope is that you leave with at least one new idea, one useful connection, or one step to help support the important work you do. Again, thank you all for being here, and take a few minutes to connect with each other after the meeting. So thank you.